Imagine it's pouring outside. You go to the closet and grab your old umbrella, the one with the kinks on the frame and some tears in the fabric. But it's one that you've used for so long. What's the point in getting a new one? You know exactly how to hold it up against the wind in such a way that it doesn't flip over. You know how to position it in such a way that the rain doesn't drain through the little tears on it. But then you start to ask yourself, as you make your way through the rain, how come I don't get another umbrella, given how difficult this one is to use? But then you realize, it's not difficult to use. It's predictable. You've used it for so long that you've adapted to it. Using it, as difficult as it might be for someone else, is convenient for you. Well, this umbrella represents the way that we approach relationships, how we navigate toxic relationships, simply because they feel easier to navigate, because we're more familiar with them. Through one way or another, we've become accustomed to that. We've normalized it. So instead of finding something healthier, something better, something that would challenge us to get out of our comfort zone, to learn something new about ourselves, we stick with what we've always known. This way that we approach relationships is not limited to just romantic relationships, but also the friends and even the family members that we keep around us. It is our sole responsibility to curate the people that we surround ourselves with. It's not something that we can outsource to other people. And as we know, this makes such a profound difference in who we are and how we feel. The brain weighs only 2% of our entire body weight, but it consumes up to about 30% of the energy that the body needs. What this means is that the brain has to have evolved ways to be energy efficient. The way that the brain does this is by automating a lot of our interactions, whether that's with people, ideas, or things. Instead of having to deliberate and figure out every single nuance, whenever we encounter something, our brain keeps a certain blueprint of how we navigated that situation, that dynamic, whatever it may have been. That makes it that much more easier for us to navigate it the next time, sometimes subconsciously. In the same way, when it comes to relationships, the more we encounter certain types of relationships, whether that's because we grew up with it or somewhere along our lives we were exposed to it and we spent enough time with it, we get so used to dealing with it that it becomes familiar. That familiarity means that it's become easier to navigate. Easier doesn't mean healthy in this sense. It simply means we've been exposed to it and we know all the tears and the kinks in the material. We know how to navigate terrain with it, even if it's not the best solution. And this feels far more ideal than getting a new umbrella and having to figure out how it works, what this button does, how to open it in the first place. So this energy conservation mechanism that our brains have evolved is one of the ways in which we are attracted to toxic relationships, even when we know that they're not good for us. Think of other parallels to this. Think of bad habits that you've acquired. The reason why you're engaging in these bad habits is not because you don't know that the consequences are not going to be ideal, but rather because you're so used to these bad habits, it's easy for you to engage in them, even if you've made up your mind at some point that you aren't going to do it again. It's the whole idea of a bad habit. We just tend not to see relationships as bad habits, but that's exactly what they are. Another parallel to this is the Stockholm Syndrome, which is the phenomenon where a victim becomes so used to their abuser or kidnapper or whoever it might be, that they actually start to empathize and prefer to be around that person, as opposed to having to do the difficult work of navigating a different environment, regardless of how much healthier that environment might be. Our brains love predictability, regardless of the outcome. Another root cause for why we're attracted to people who are not healthy for us has to do with our attachment style. People who are anxiously attached are far more prone to putting up and overlooking red flags in the people around them. They feel a profound sense of loneliness. They feel a desperation to be with other people, regardless of what they have to put up with. And this creates that very situation where you put up with bad behavior simply because you're worried about losing that person. You're worried about not finding any replacement for that company. At that point, even if you somehow manage to balance your attachment style, you're still more familiar with the toxic relationships and you still keep gravitating towards those. So what are some ways that we can go about resolving this? It all starts with self-awareness. Self-awareness is what it takes for us to recognize that there's a problem in the first place, whether that's with our attachment style or simply with becoming so accustomed to toxic relationships. We can unlearn any bad habits by putting more friction between us and the habit, thereby making it less appealing. And also by making it easier for us to engage with the good habits, thereby making that more appealing. With relationships, this typically involves distance and time. Give ourselves more distance away from such people, both physically and digitally, and give it enough time, and eventually that effect starts to wear off. Another way is by promoting good habits, making them easier and more rewarding to engage with. It's going to be challenging to expose ourselves to unfamiliar situations, But by simply putting ourselves around such people, whether that's joining some group or activity or paying for some gym membership, that gives us more incentive to engage with healthier dynamics. That too is another complementary way to go about creating better relationships around us. So to summarize that point, making difficult relationships or making bad relationships more difficult to engage with and making good relationships easier to engage with. Working on our self-worth is yet another way we can go about building better relationships. This means becoming more confident in ourselves. This requires actual work on ourselves, like working out, eating healthy. It's both a mind and a physical game. And the more we do this, the more confidence we build in ourselves. Not arrogance, but confidence that allows us to exercise our ability to choose the types of people that we want around us, as opposed to desperately latching onto whatever toxic people are able to put up with us. More self-respect also means more good people around us, and more good people around us means more self-respect. We also can't forget about social and cultural influences. Sometimes the problem is less about our inability to find good people and more about being surrounded by a culture and an environment that pressures us towards the types of people who bring us down. So we need to be mindful of our surroundings and challenge them when they're not offering us what we want from it, what we deserve from it. We need to move away from such environments and redefine the relationships in our lives. This can be done by exposing ourselves to unfamiliar dynamics, knowing that the effort that it takes to navigate such situations is only going to get easier over time. Sometimes that's what it takes for us to realize that we're in a bad environment to begin with, is by seeing what the alternatives are. And only then can we find healthier relationships. If you found any valuable insights in this video, please consider subscribing, like, share, comment. Any engagement at all would be deeply appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.